She could not read. She could not write. She fell asleep without warning. And the Union Army still put her in charge of one of the most dangerous operations of the Civil War. If you're here, welcome. My name is Sergio.
And I am Zaida.
And we are a husband and wife team. And this podcast is exactly what it sounds like. History we just learned together. And the lessons that we did not expect to find inside them. Sweetie, I want to talk to you about this woman, Harriet Tubman, and what she represents. And I want to start by reminding you, or retelling you a little bit of a story of how I came to be here in America and how tragic it became.
I remember.
Yes, a few months after. I arrived to Boston. In a way, I was here basically by myself. And I come from the Dominican Republic, with a very hot weather. And then I moved to Boston in the winter.
The middle of the cold.
It's extremely cold. At least that's how I felt back then when I was in Boston. And the cold was brutal. So the culture was so different too. I had no friends. And I felt so lonely when I was in Boston. However, as time was passing, as weeks were passing by, and I was getting acclimated to the people. I was making friends, all this stuff. But the problem was that once I was like, okay, I got this, then my plans changed completely. So drastically, because I was not going to be able to go to school anymore. And I was not expecting that at all. So I have no school, no clear plan, no stability, nothing. And I was in America so far away from my home. I've never traveled anywhere before that. So it was incredibly painful being there and not being able to find a way out. And in the middle of that situation, my aunt Emma, she was incredible because she saw what was going on and she said, you know what, I'm going to go get you. And she was incredible because even though she has her own son, her own life, her own problems, she took me in anyway. And she allowed me to stay in her house. She allowed me to stay with her and to basically be part of her family while I figured out my life. And she carried me through the most uncertain and most difficult period of my life. And I want to ask you, have you ever been in a situation like that you have someone that has taken you in?
I've been in a situation, but not as traumatic as yours.
Okay.
So for me, I was in the middle of my second semester in college. At this point, my family's paying for my bills. I'm living on my parents. They're paying for my bills, my rent. And I was only responsible to pay for my college because I didn't get financial aid. I couldn't get financial aid. And I was working at a laundromat during that time. And that was what was helping me out to pay for college. So in the middle of my second semester, I would work weekends. I think it was just Sunday. So I remember, I think it was a Wednesday. The boss, he calls me. He was like, don't come in this Sunday because we had a problem. The laundromat is a 24-hour laundromat. And there were only, someone who attended around 9 to 5. So anything after that, no one, oversee the laundromat. People will go to the laundry and leave. And I don't know what happened, but the laundromat burned down. And when he called me, he was like, don't come in this Sunday because, we got a fire and we had to clean up. We had to get everything ready. But the way he spoke to me, it looked like it was just, a few weeks. I was like, okay. And then a month went by. And, at this point, I'm like, what is going on? Because, I was saving money for my next semester and I was in the middle of, the second one. And then he was like, he calls me, after that month. And he was like, look, I suggested to just find a new job. Because it looks like the damage was, really, really bad. That he was going to take months for them to repair everything. And they knew that I was in college. That's how I was paying for it. So one day I went to do laundry to another place. And, just a regular Friday was to do my laundry. And the owner of the laundry comes in and she looks at me and she was like, do you want to work? Like, just like that. I'm like,
Nice.
what? She was like, yeah, we're looking for someone to work these days, these hours. But I couldn't work those days. I
You
couldn't work
have
those hours
school,
because,
no?
because it was during in the middle of the week and I was in school. And I was like, look, I am looking for a job, but I can take this one because I'm in college. And the days that you're telling me, the days that you're giving me, they're while I'm in school. She went out of her way to rearrange her whole staff so I could work for her.
For you.
Why did she do that? Up to this day, I do not know. But she became one of the best bosses I ever had. Because of her, I was able to pay for my college. I was able to graduate. And they were always flexible with my college schedule. Like, they never gave me, she could have easily be like, oh, okay, let me look for someone who can work those hours. But no, like, she decided to rearrange everybody just so I could work there. I mean, mind you, I think it was all God. Because God is what put that in people's hearts. And up to this day, oh my gosh, she's been like the best boss I ever had.
So the question is, have you had someone like that in your life? Someone that helped you out in the moment of need? Most of us have had an Emma, like my aunt, at some point. Someone who did not have to stop for us, but did. Someone who had their own burdens, their own household, and still made room. And if you're honest, you probably know someone right now who needs someone to show up. Not tomorrow, right now. Harriet Tubman's whole life keeps asking the same question. You made it somewhere, you have something now. Stability, a room, resources, a seat at a table. Is there someone behind you who needs you to reach back? That is exactly what Harriet Tubman did for 60 years. And the full story of how starts long before the Underground Railroad. Most people in America know who Harriet Tubman is, or at least everyone thinks they do. She is Moses, the woman who escaped slavery and went back for others. She is on the $20 bill. She is in every history textbook. Kids know her name before they know most presidents. But the version most people know is the highlight reel. And the highlight reel leaves out the part where Harriet was actually the most impactful. So let's go back all the way. Her name is not Harriet, not yet. She is born around 1822 in Dorchester County, Maryland. Her birth name is Araminta Ross. Everyone calls her Minty. She is born into slavery on a plantation owned by a man named Edward Brodes. Her mom is owned by Brodes. Her father is owned by a different man entirely. A family legally split between two households. And that is just the world that she is born into. From the time she's 5 or 6 years old, she is hired to work in other households. She is a nursemaid first, staying up all night, watching families' babies while getting beaten if it cries. Then, a field hand. Then, she works in the forest alongside her father, hauling logs, driving oxen. She learns to read the land and the waterways of the Maryland Eastern Shore better than almost anyone around her. She is small, tough, quiet, paying attention to everything. She is about 12 years old when everything changes. She is running an errand at a dry goods store in the town of Bugtown, Maryland. A young man comes in running. He has left his plantation without permission. His overseer storms in behind him, furious, and demands that everyone in the store helps block the man's escape. Minty refuses. The overseer picks up a 2-pound cast iron weight from the store counter and throws it at the fleeing man. He misses. It hits minty square in the forehead. The weight fractured her skull. She is carried back to the plantation unconscious and bleeding. She is laid on a loom seat and left there. No doctor, no medical attention for 2 days. She survives, but she's never the same. For the rest of her life, Harriet Tubman falls asleep without warning, mid sentence, mid step, mid conversation. It just happens and nobody can wake her up when it does. Doctors today identified it as a post traumatic narcolepsy, permanent damage to the neurons that keep a person awake caused by the kind of head injury she sustained. No cure back then, no treatment now. Her slaveholders tried to sell her. Nobody wants to buy a field hand who might drop unconscious in the middle of the harvest. But here is what the injury also gives her. When she wakes up from these episodes, she describes vivid visions. She calls them messages from God, telling her which direction to go, when to move, when to stop, whether the path ahead is safe. Her faith and her injury become the same thing, and together they become the engine that drives her for the next 80 years of her life. She hears the rumor that her slaveholder's widow is going to sell people to pay the debts, and she decides. She escapes on Saturday night. Why Saturday? Because newspapers did not run runaway slave notices until Monday, 2 extra days before anyone can formally organize a search. She travels alone, mostly at night, navigating by the North Star, hiding in haystacks, in cellars, in the homes of free black families and Quaker abolitionists along the Underground Railroad network. She walks almost 90 miles through Maryland and Delaware into Pennsylvania. She arrives in Philadelphia. She is free. She later describes that moment like this. When I found I had crossed that line, I looked at my hands to see if I was the same person. There was such a glory over everything. The sun came like gold through trees and over the fields, and I felt like I was in heaven. And then, almost immediately, she thinks about the people she left behind. Her parents, her brothers, her sisters, still in Maryland, still owned. She goes back. From 1850 to 1860, she makes 13 missions into Maryland, each one more dangerous than the last. She moves groups of people, sometimes families, sometimes strangers, 90 miles through hostile territory. At night, in winter, through swamps and rivers. She gives them one rule. If you get scared and try to turn back, I will shoot you before I let you lead slave catchers to the rest of us. She carries a pistol on every mission. She never has to use it because nobody turns back. 13 missions, around 70 people brought to freedom. No one captured, no one lost. It is 1860. She is in her late 30s, fugitive, price on her head, living in Auburn, New York. She has brought her elderly parents out of Maryland and is taking care of them. She has earned the right to stop. The Civil War breaks out in April of 1861. She does not stop. It is May 1862. The Civil War is 1 year old. The Union Army has established a base on a group of barrier islands off the coast of South Carolina called the Sea Islands, surrounded on 3 sides by Confederate territory. Swamps, rivers, rice plantations. Tens of thousands of enslaved people still working those fields. Harriet Tubman arrives by ship. Her purpose say that she's a nurse. She does nurse. There are soldiers dying of malaria, and she moves through the sick wards with remedies to save the people that the army have given up on. She becomes known among the men as a healer. But that's not the real reason she's there. Union generals have studied what she did for 11 years, moving through hostile territory undetected, building networks of trust with people no officer could reach, reading terrain without maps, never getting caught. They give her a new assignment: build a spy network behind Confederate lines. Harriet Tubman, who cannot read or write, who can fall unconscious without warning, becomes the head of a Union military intelligence unit operating inside the Confederacy. She recruits a network of 8 scouts, all formerly enslaved men who know these rivers and roads in a way no Union officer ever could. Among them are 2 river pilots, Charles Simmons and Samuel Hayward, men who have spent years navigating the waterways of the South Carolina coast and know every current, every sandbar, and every bend of the Combahee River in the dark. For months, Tubman moves through Confederate territory. She cannot write anything down. Everything, troops positions, supply routes, ammunition locations, goes into her memory. And most critically, the exact location of the Confederate torpedo. Underwater mines planted at strategic points in the river, specifically to destroy Union ships attempting exactly this kind of operation. Every mine, every marker, every bend, all of it locked in her head. At the same time, word moves through the plantation along the Combahee River, through people working the same field. A look, a few words at the water's edge, something is coming. We do not know exactly when. When the signal goes up, run for the river. Some of those people carry the secret for weeks, getting up every morning, going to work, eating dinner with their families, putting their children to sleep at night, waiting, not knowing when. Just be ready. It is late evening, June 1st, 1863. 3 Union gunboats, the John Adams, the Harriet A. Weed, and the Sentinel, slip out of Beaufort Harbor in South Carolina without lights. They head towards the mouth of the Combahee River. On board are around 300 black soldiers from 2 South Carolina infantry and a detachment of artillery from the 3rd Rhode Island. They follow Moses tonight. Harriet Tubman is on the deck of the lead ship, watching the water. Shortly after leaving the port, the Sentinel runs aground. Its soldiers transfer to the other 2 ships in the dark. The mission continues. The Combahee River is full of Confederate torpedoes, underwater mines chained to the riverbed at key points, placed specifically to destroy Union ships attempting to move inland. Any one of them would sink a gunboat and everyone on it. Tubman guides the pilots through every single one from memory in complete darkness. Left here, slow down bend, the mine is ahead. Go around to the north side. Not a single ship is lost. The river opens up ahead of them. At 2:30 in the morning, the ships reach the first plantation. The signal goes up, and the people who have been waiting start running. Tubman later tells her biographer she had never seen such a sight in her life. People pour out of the field and the tree lines like water. Women with babies strapped to their backs, children struggling to keep up on bare feet, men with bags on their shoulders and baskets on their heads, pigs squealing, chickens squawking, and people, hundreds of people, running to the river, clutching pots of rice, their food, the one thing they owned, grabbed in the dark while Confederate soldiers are firing guns behind them. So many people rush the boats at once that the loading becomes dangerous. People pushing, crying, the weight shifts on the ships. Black troops in rowboats are ferrying people from the banks to the gunboats, but the crowd is not listening to them. Reports say Tubman went on deck and sang a well-known abolitionist song, and the crowd calmed. People began moving in organized way. They boarded the ships. Confederate soldiers are on the shore. Some accounts say they fire on the people running. One young woman is reported killed. The ships pull away. By the time it is over, more than 750 people are free. The Confederate rice plantations along the Combahee are burning. Bridges destroyed. Supply lines cut. The pontoon bridge that supplied the Confederate forces in the area shot to pieces by the gunboats. Over 100 of the freemen enlist in the Union Army the same day in Beaufort. A single Union soldier is lost. It is the largest single liberation of slave people by a military operation in the entire history of the Civil War. Harriet Tubman serves the Union Army for 3 years. She's a nurse, spy, scout, raid commander. She is never paid for any of it. She supports herself during those 3 years by making the pies and root beers to soldiers. Every dollar she earns, beyond her own survival, goes back into her operation. After the war, she applies for a military pension. Denied. She applies again. Denied again. She cannot write the appeals herself. She has other people write on her behalf. Secretary of State William Seward writes for her. Senators write for her. The letters pile up in government office. 30 years pass. She finally receives a pension in 1899. She is in her late 70s, and when it comes, it is not for her own service. It is as the widow of her second husband, Nelson Davis. Through all of it, she does not stop. She becomes a suffragette. She fights for women's rights to vote. She travels, she speaks, she attends the founding meeting at the National Association of Colored Women. In 1896, she buys 25 acres of land next to her home in Auburn, New York. She donates it to the local AME Zion Church to build a home for elderly black Americans who have nowhere else to go. She is in her mid-70s and she's giving away land she spent decades scraping together the money to buy. Every person she went back for, every mission, every letter written on her behalf, every year of fighting for people being left behind, nobody lost. This is something worthy of note. Every single time she made it somewhere, she reached back. She makes it to Philadelphia, she reaches back for her family. 13 times she makes it through the war. She reaches back for women who cannot vote for 40 more years. She scrapes together enough money to own land. She reaches back for elderly people who have nowhere to go. She did not escape alone. Free black families, Quaker abolitionists, safe house operators, people she had never met reached down for her. She gets to Philadelphia because other people made room. But what's even more remarkable, she never pulls the ladder up behind her. Not once. She did it because she understood what it means to actually make it somewhere. Someone reached out for you at some point. A person, a moment, an open door that did not have to be open. And the only honest response to that is to turn around and reach back. Okay, sweetie. Did you know anything about this woman, Harriet Tubman, before today?
I learned about her during school, but not as everything we just read just now. We just heard now.
Awesome. Let's be clear because I came here as a grown man, so I really didn't know anything about American history, which is awesome because it gives me like a fresh eyes to learn about these stories. But yeah, I only heard about her when there were political debates whether to put her in the $20 bill or not and stuff like that. But before this, the research that we did for this podcast, I had never heard of who she was before, and this woman is awesome. It's incredible who
Just
she
like
is.
a badass.
So you see that she made it out. She's free. And the first thing that she does is she goes back. Why do you think she could not just stay free? Because if it was me, I'd be like, I'm done. Like, bye. Why do you think she couldn't just stay that free?
I think it's a whole mentality that your family's back there and you know what it's like to be in their shoes. So it's like the moment that you get some freedom, do you think that she might have feel guilty that she's free and her family's not? That she find a
Right.
way and her family can't find a way, so she needs to go back to show them how to get out? I
It-
think,
The story,
that's
she says that when she crossed to Philadelphia, that she saw her hands and she felt that it was different. And I would imagine the perspective of what being a slave, like knowing the actual pain of going through it, being subjugated by someone else, being mistreated, and
just treat it as property because,
yes, going through all of that, and then looking back, you know what? I think I need to help more people out because if she was never born in slavery, maybe she would never know what it feels like to actually be a slave.
talking about purposes. We could say
Exa-
it was the wrong timeline because it was slavery, but she was right for her time to free all these people.
And the thing that's awesome about her is that she gave everything. And the country that she served gave her almost nothing back. The thing with the government not giving her the pension, and the pension that she received was not even the one for the labor and the hard work that she gave, and the things that she did, but based on her second husband pension. It was almost like a getting out of their way to not recognize all the hard work that she did. And how do you feel knowing that she was not compensated properly by the government?
It really gets me mad, but I think maybe in her mind she was used to it. I mean, because at this point they kind of acknowledging her. Back
Yeah.
then when she was a slave, she was nobody.
Yeah, like going from being a slave to being a person that's free but is not compensated. Maybe she will feel like this is actually a step up.
Yeah, like I'd rather be where I'm at right now instead of being a slave, you know?
But I also think he talks about her character.
Yes.
That it was not really about the money. You know why? Because the part where he talks about how, aside from the money that she would need to survive, she would put it back in to the missions that she needed to do. So, like, this woman is an angel. I think there is a reason why she's being spoken about in textbooks, and like I think everybody should know about this woman because she's a great example for us.
Yes.
And this woman was definitely remarkable, and she leaves an amazing example for us. Us in the 21st century, where we have this comfortable life when we don't have to face slavery, even though, spoiler alert, slavery is still present, not in America, but globally.
Yes, in other,
You
in
have
other
8
countries.
million people still being enslaved. But the thing is, like, we started with this story, and obviously our story, personal story, will never measure up to how she lived her life and all the things she did. And the things that she endured, the mission, the war, the 30 years of being ignored by the country that she risked everything for. And I cannot compare my life to her in any way, and I wouldn't even try. But the principle underneath her life is not reserved for extraordinary people like her. It shows up in regular life too. And in a phone call, in a spare room, in a plate of food. My Aunt Emma, for example, did not have to come for me in Boston. She had her own son, her own life, her own problems, and she came anyway. She took me in, and what she did in that moment changed the direction of everything that came after for me. Like, if she didn't help me out, I wouldn't have met you.
That's true.
If she didn't help me out, we wouldn't have our daughters.
Wow. I didn't I could like
You
this is
see,
another point of view of looking at
This is
it.
a turning point. A turning point in my life comes from this lady, my Aunt Emma, helping me out. And so the Harriet Tubman principle, at a completely different scales, you have to think of yourself and your life, someone that is behind you that needs it. And you need to reach back. We need to reach back. Why? Because the hand that pulled you up is only worth something if you reach back down.
That's so true.
It's only worth something if you reach back down. Somebody reached back for you. Maybe it was a teacher, a friend, A door that opened that did not have to be opened. Maybe Harriet Tubman did not have to wait until things were comfortable. She was a fugitive, she was broke, she was sick. She reached back anyway. 13 times, then a war, then 40 more years. The question she leaves for us is not complicated. Someone reached back down for you. Now, who are you reaching back for? So remember, the hand that pulled you up is only worth something if you reach back down. Guys, thank you so much for listening. If this episode meant something to you, please follow us and leave a 5-star review and share it with someone who needs to hear it. We post every Monday. See you next week.
Bye-bye.